Hi, welcome back to another move and release class. Today is full of things that have been helping me rest lately. I've actually been bringing in a few yoga inspired mobility sequences, some self massage, some self myofascial release, and my quality of sleep has really benefited. So this is kind of a little bit of a mixed bag of things, but it focuses on your thoracic area. If you're not aware, we have three components of our spine. We have our cervical, our thoracic, and our lumbar. Three different sections. Our thoracic really works through our upper back, our chest, and our bra line area. So if you're someone that wears crops or bras, they can get quite restricted in our breath. And obviously, if we're working from home a lot at the moment, you may not be wearing them at all, which is fantastic for your respiratory system and for your thoracic area, but that's really where we're going to be working through. Personally, I have some injuries in these spaces and I will be talking you through how to do some of these movements safely. If you have any questions for your physiotherapist, for your GP before you start, that's not a bad idea. You can approach this definitely more gently, and I would always advise, if you're doing different movements or different releases, to do that always, just to see how they feel, because they may feel great in the moment, they may not feel so great the next day. And I don't mean working so hard that you're fatigued. I'm talking about working with areas of discomfort or injuries. So always move mindfully. Message me if you have any questions about these particular movements. Seek advice and approval before you do them. As always, it's not a particularly arduous class. It's quite gentle, but it is very opening, very kind of mobility based. A little bit of fascial movement and a little bit of release. Now we will need a roller. I don't think I've used a roller in any classes. If you don't have one of these, you don't need to spend a lot on them. In fact, the cheaper ones are often a little more soft, so that's not usually a bad place to start if you've never done some release stuff, especially if you've never opened your thoracic up. If you don't have a roller, I've been trying to think of an appropriate alternative, if only for the moment. It might not be as good. If you've got a bolster or something that is a little bit round, you could roll up a blanket quite densely or a couple of towels and see if that cuts it. It's just going to be far less opening. If you're really hardcore, you could potentially use a block with a blanket on it, but I wouldn't recommend. And if you do, do it on the low level because it can be a little bit too much. Now we're going to get our roller, we're going to place it on the floor on our mat, and we're going to lie on it through where our bra strap-ish line is, anywhere from here up to the top of the shoulders really. If you haven't done this before, or you are quite tender through this area, or if you're a dodgy posture guy, if you're someone that works at a desk and you find you've got the old hunch, it might be better to get a blanket or some towels and actually cushion off the space. If you have one of those lumpy rollers, this is an example of a lumpy roller, but they are quite soft, it can be a little bit more intense. So blankets are a really nice way to soften them up. And in fact, the softer the roller, the less abrasive it is. I used to have a cheap one from, I think it was Kmart, and it was really, really soft, which was lovely when I was feeling a bit more tender. So what I'm going to do from here is roll and recline. Now, if you're not so great through the neck, you can always come at it from the side and position. However, when we get there, we're going to immediately interlace our fingers behind our head and bring our elbows in nice and tight. Now, what this does is create a sling for our head. So I've talked about it in other videos, but our head can weigh up to 10 kilos, which is quite a lot of weight for our neck to hold if we have issues with our neck, which I do personally. So really make sure that your hands are there and your head is heavy. So your arm should really be doing the work here, and you may actually feel that. Now, you can have the roller anywhere from your bra strap, anywhere up. I recommend bending the legs to start, because if we have straight legs, we quite often will arch through our lumbar. We don't want anything happening through our lumbar spine. So if we bend our legs, it's a little bit more likely to be neutral. If you've got a big booty or hips like me, it might be more inclined to come into unhappy extension. So try and think of keeping the pelvis and the hips still. From here, our head is in our sling, our elbows are tight, and we're going to come into little extensions and flexions. So we are extending the spine and we are flexing the spine. Our head is heavy. The weight is taken into our hands. And what you'll find is you'll have areas that are more uncomfortable and more comfortable. So if you want to walk your bottom down and have the roller shift up your back a little, you can do that. And if this is new to you, I wouldn't recommend going as deep. It might just be about drawing the elbows a couple of inches back and forth. And make sure to remind yourself to keep the lumbar back, your lower back, your hips, still. What you'll find is the thoracic area probably won't go very far, which is fine. We don't want it to be big. We want it to be specific. And this can be quite intense. So if you need to have little rests, or if you need to only do a handful of these, then that's fine. You can continue to move up or down. Making sure that you're not adding tension through the rib cage or your thoracic area, and that you can still breathe freely through these extensions. Got about 30 seconds left. I've been doing this almost every day, and I'm actually a little bit tender through here, so don't overdo it like I've been doing, but you can add this in a couple times a week, even just before you go to bed. That can help you breathe a little more deeply. When you get up, you can roll off to the side. You can keep one hand behind the head, use the other one to help push you off and get you to come back up. That's the only time we'll need the roller. So that can move off to the side. We'll come onto all fours from here, trying to focus the arms and the knees at a 90-degree angle. You can always bring something in to kind of measure that angle. You don't have to. Spread the fingers nice and wide so that your wrists and your shoulders have a wide base of support. Bring your knees as wide as you need. Toes can be tucked or untucked as you prefer. Again, trying not to move too much through the lumbar. It will move, unlike the previous thoracic mobility movement exercise. The lumbar will move a little. We're going to come into some cat-cow. So take a deep breath in. As you exhale, you're going to look towards the belly, arch your back. Look at your belly button and push the ground away a lot. Head can drop down. Inhale, we do the same. Belly sinks. Shoulders roll back, gaze comes forward. Exhale, push the ground away, round in. You may have done these before. Inhale, come forward, extend. If you can, try and focus the movement through your thoracic, through the shoulders, maybe even the rib space, rather than duck butting and just moving from the lumbar. Quite often our lumbar knows how to move, but our thoracic can be really stuck. So just keeping that in mind as you move. How can I get more activity through the shoulders and the ribs? Pushing the ground away, really rounding through the back. Just moving in your own time. Now, if prolonged periods on your knees is a little tender, you might like to grab a towel or blanket and pop them underneath. We'll be spending a little bit of time on the knees. Alrighty, from here you're going to walk your right foot up. We're going to come into maybe slightly wider than 90 degrees. We're not going to come up, but I'll show you to demonstrate what I mean by position. If I were to come up, I've got a relatively 90-90. 90 through my rear left leg, 90 through my right front leg. From here, I'm actually going to wiggle the front leg wide. So I've got a really wide base. Hands come down to the ground and then they come wide and forward, maybe even off your mat. Hips stay where they are, just for now. You can come up onto fingertips or stay down. You can even grab a block or two if you need a little bit more height for your hands. Basically, accommodate your tummy, your chest where you feel comfy. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe out, we're going to come into our cat-cows again. Sorry, I think I got the breath wrong. Exhale, we're going to round and breathe out as we compress the belly round through the thoracic. Inhale, sink the chest, extend the shoulders. Now you're not going to get as much range, so come to terms with that. We're just coming into a different position, hamstring stretch for that front leg. Maybe you sink the hips back as you extend, making space for the chest. In your own time with your own breath. When you're ready, left hand plants underneath the left shoulder. Right hand's going to come up to the sky. Now, quite often we get coached in this position in yoga to look up, which can stress out our neck a lot. So what I prefer to do is either look down, but I actually like to make space between my grounding shoulder and my head, and then just hang the neck out. So just really let it drop. And from here, you might like to draw the right arm, the top arm back to open up the chest, but you don't have to. Head is loose. Take a deep breath in. And then come back. Right hand comes to the ground. We'll come back to all fours before we switch it over. Left leg comes forward. Take it wide of the mat. Make space for the tummy, chest, hips. Hands come forward and either stay flat or planted or onto fingertips. When you're ready, take a deep breath in, sink the belly, look forward, draw the shoulders back. Exhale, round and curve. In your own time, breathe in, open up, look forward. Exhale, round, push back. We're really just getting comfortable. Moving with breath into spaces. Right hand plants flat underneath the right shoulder. Make space, push the ground away. Left hand's going to come up to the sky. Once we've got some space between our head and our grounding shoulder, you can drop the neck. Breathe. Maybe one more breath in to draw the top hand back. Inhale. Exhale, close it off. Left hand comes down. Come back onto all fours. Shift back in your hips. So we're not quite in child's pose legs. Hips are drawn back towards the heels. And then maybe just move the hips from side to side. You can take the fingers pointing left and right, wide if your wrists need a little bit of a break. We're going to come back into a lunge variant again. So right leg comes forward. This time we're going to spin the left foot wide and come up. So right leg is forward, hips are open to the left side. Foot comes back to support. Again, you can come onto toes. I'm kind of somewhere in between. My foot is pressed into the ground. Right elbow comes to right knee. So I'm still in that really arched position. And if you think of your QL, the space above your hip and kind of slightly behind your back, I'm going to really round my side body. So this bit of my body I'm trying to pull up to the sky. Left hand's going to come up. Palm faces down towards the ground to open up the scapula. And I reach over, head can hang. And you can either stay here or start to take some really big shoulder circles and not just swing the arm around. You can come into a closed fist if you want some more activity, or an open hand, active fingers. Rotating from the shoulder. Really opening up the thoracic part of our body, our shoulder blades, our rib cage. Maybe taking the other direction. Come back into a reached position like we did to start. Really curving the body, lifting the QL to the sky. Come back to all fours. To transition to the other side, left leg comes forward. We try to spin our back foot wide so that we can come up into a supported stance without being too wobbly. Left elbow, left knee. Remember, we are extending the side body here. So our right QL, we really draw up to the sky. Right hand comes up. Palm faces down towards the earth and reaches over the head so that we've got this really nice angle from right fingertips down to right knee. And then keeping yourself supported, left elbow, left knee, we rotate at the right scapula. Changing direction when you feel the need, not just swinging the arm in the socket, but really drawing the shoulder back and forth. Come back into that extended position. Draw the QL up to the roof, let the head hang. Come back onto all fours. From here, you might like to take some lateral movements, meaning instead of cat-cowing, although you can, kind of swaying the hips from side to loosen off the lower back. The scapulars, the spine is getting rinsed. Come back to a seat. I'm going to come into Gomukhasana variation. So if you've done this before, you can set yourself up. Otherwise, I'll show you a few different variations. We begin with a leg extended. 1 foot over the knee is where we can start. We can tuck that foot behind us, but the way that I like to get into this is not coming into this stacked position, though you can. Another variation is simply sitting with your legs closed or crossed rather. It's coming onto all fours. Stepping 1 foot in front, we're going to do both sides, so it doesn't really matter which one. And crossing it over the opposite knee. Feet spin wide, and we sit ourselves back onto our hips. Alrighty. So that looks like all fours. Lifting 1 foot forward, threading, which can be quite tricky if you've got a tummy in the way, or if you don't have the mobility to do this comfortably, and leaning back. So, option 1, 1 leg extended, opposite foot over the top. Nice lengthened spine. Option 2, sitting cross-legged. Option 3, full Gomukhasana, which is 1 leg stacked on the other. Alrighty. From here, once you set your position up, decide which variation you would like to be in or which feels right for you today. And you can stay there. Wherever you are, if you can, try and get both of your bum cheeks on the ground. So it might take a little bit of wiggling to do that, or positioning of the leg. It's less important how far we can tuck and more important that our hips are square. From here, we're going to place one hand on the ground to the side. And we're going to lift ourselves up just like we did in that extension. So as we lift the hand up, it ends up facing down towards the ground, opposite arm bends. And we just switch sides. So no pace required. If this is too much, come back to your static position. And then when you're ready, come out of your position. Have a bit of a shake if you need, just to kind of get the body ready for the other side, as I try and remember which side I just did. Yeah, that seems right. So if you were coming into it via all fours, you might like to come forward out of your Gomukhasana, have a bit of a wiggle on all fours and then switch it up. Now you'll notice if one side is tighter than the other. So on this side you may prefer just to stay still. Again, the more important thing is that the hips are nice and square on the ground rather than adding in the movement. Extending if it feels appropriate. No need to look up. Head and gaze can be down. Take 2 more breaths here. Uncurl yourself. Give yourself a little wiggle. And from here, you can come into a seat on a chair, or you can come into a butterfly variation with the feet. So feet together, knees wide. Hands can rest on the knees or the ankles. We're going to cat-cow one more time, wherever you can hold on. If you're sitting in a chair, just pop your hands on your knees. And as we inhale, we'll draw the chest forward with the strength of our arms. Shoulders come back. As we exhale, we round and roll. Inhale, drawing forward and open. Exhaling, rolling. Two more breaths. Any intuitive movement you would like to do here, if you want to have a little bit of a spine wiggle, or if you want to return back to any of these poses, you can. Otherwise, I would recommend lying down, if only for a few minutes, to have a bit of time for these poses to really settle in the body. Lying flat on your back, popping a bolster behind your knees, elevating your legs up onto a chair or the wall. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and really feel into the practices of the body. As always, if you have any questions, please ask me. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this movement, and I'll see you soon.